Welcome to my channel. If you like the content, please subscribe for more.
Neighbor called the cops on me smoking green stuff, so I outed him to his family. To begin with, I want to mention that marijuana is illegal where I live. As a result, I am always cautious about the smell and understand that it can be unpleasant for non-smokers. To avoid causing discomfort, I usually smoke late at night when I believe everyone should be asleep, including my downstairs neighbors. However, the neighbor below me is a heavy tobacco smoker who slams the terrace door shut so hard that it shakes the walls. I figured out that he usually smokes his last cigarette at around 2:30 a.m., so I decided to smoke at 3 a.m. I took precautions to avoid disturbing him, such as opening the windows and using an oil diffuser that's also anti-tobacco. Unfortunately, I still ended up getting in trouble with the police as my neighbor complained about the smell. Before this incident, my neighbor wasn't friendly, but his wife was sweet in the few interactions we had. When I first moved in, he gave me a death stare, but I assumed he was just grumpy. However, a few days later, I noticed a new profile on Grindr, and it turned out to be him. I began chatting with him, pretending to be someone else, and we ended up S-timeting, with him even sending me nude pictures. The next day, I felt guilty about what I did, and I decided to tell his wife what had happened. She was devastated and ended up kicking him out of the house. I felt a sense of satisfaction for getting my revenge, but I also feel terrible for the wife and their child who didn't deserve to be hurt like this. Overall, it was not the right way to seek revenge, and I regret my actions. It's essential to treat our neighbors with respect and understanding, even if they don't show the same kindness in return. Redditor's reactions. Next story after Redditor 1. Thankfully, you were the one who outed him to his wife. Wonder how long he'd been cheating to begin with. Redditor 2. Wait, I thought pot smokers were mellow. Just kidding, he deserved it for cheating and being an ad. Redditor follow-up. He deserved it for cheating and being an a-hole. Yeah, from reading the title, I thought that's a bit overkill. Until I read that the guy was on Grindr while being married. He definitely deserved that. Redditor 3. She needed to know. Redditor follow-up. Uppy didn't create the problem, just revealed it. Even if the neighbor wasn't a butt-wrench about telling the wife is the right thing to do. Story 2. Running into your lover at home can be a shocking experience, to say the least. That's what I thought as I sat on my couch, watching a TV program on my widescreen just a week ago. Little did I know, my world was about to turn upside down. I had just returned from a business trip that ended earlier than expected. When I entered my house, everything seemed dark and empty. I found it strange that my wife wasn't home at 8 p.m. Maybe she went out for drinks with her friends or visited her parents, I thought. As I entered my bedroom, I felt the familiar sensation of coming home after a long time. The room was quiet, and I was ready to unwind after a long day, but suddenly I heard the front door open, and a man's voice accompanied my wife's. I was puzzled. Who could it be? It couldn't be her father-in-law. His voice was too young for that. As the voices grew closer, I realized that something was wrong. I quickly hid in the closet and peered through a gap. To my horror, I saw my wife and a man I had never seen before entering the room. They took off their clothes and began to intertwine. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was paralyzed, watching them with a mix of shock and disbelief. But then I realized that I needed proof. I quietly took out my phone and recorded a video of the scene. The two of them spent the next 2 hours in the act, and I was stuck in the closet, unable to move or make any noise. It was torture to watch, but I had to stay put to get the evidence I needed. Finally, it was over, and they got dressed. I waited for a few minutes trying to regain my composure. I didn't want to appear like a peer, so I waited until they left before leaving the closet. It was a devastating discovery, and I didn't know how to confront my wife about it. I was hurt, angry, and betrayed. The events of that night changed my life forever. Why did you just storm out of the bedroom and confront them without thinking about it? I asked myself, but I knew the answer. I'm the type of person who cares about every little thing. I'm somewhat serious and meticulous. So when I came home earlier, I ritually put my shoes in the shoebox. That's why the two of them started flirting with each other, without knowing I had returned. As I was thinking about when I should leave, the intercom suddenly rang. My wife, with a suspicious look on her face, put on the clothes she had just taken off and went to the front door. Then I heard some voices arguing from far away. "You're here, Dan." My wife rushed out of the bedroom. I heard the voices of 3 people, and they were coming closer and closer. Then they passed by. I stepped out of the closet and quietly opened the bedroom door to take a look. In the living room, I saw a strange woman, in addition to my wife and the man in between. The woman seemed to be his wife. "Please give Dan back to me. I don't want to leave him. I want to marry Dan," she exclaimed. What marriage? Was she going to divorce me? I thought. Marriage? I thought you only got married when you lived in a big apartment, but you're not. No, I'm single, the woman replied. Then she smiles, I thought. In fact, I couldn't see her expression clearly because I only saw her side profile, but I got the impression from the tone of her voice that she was smiling. "I'm pregnant with his child," she began. "What's going on? She's having an affair and getting pregnant. I can't believe it," I thought. Then, after a few moments of silence, my wife and the interloper started laughing out loud. "What's so funny? Are you sure that's Dan's child?" I asked. "Of course it is. Dan is seedless," my wife replied. I leaned further out of the bedroom and looked towards the living room. I saw that my partner's face had turned pale. "Karen, whose kid is that? You said you haven't been with your husband for 6 months," he asked. "What husband? Didn't you say you were single earlier?" the woman replied. The man between us muttered, "Oh," and looked at my wife with a look as if she had done something wrong. I saw my wife poke him with her elbow. Somehow, the interloper and my wife could also read the strategy. In other words, the man between the two of them and his wife were divorcing each other, concealing their affair, and were going to be together with a nonchalant look on their faces. If they divorced without the affair being exposed, they would not have to pay unnecessary alimony. But somehow, his wife also found out about the affair. I guess he thought he could at least avoid being found out and reduce his alimony as much as possible. So she quickly lied and said she was single, I concluded. What a cheating woman. But I believe it was too kind to her. I had no idea she was unaware that he was sterile. Could you clarify what's actually going on? Are you married or single, or is it married? The man between them looked at my wife with the look that said, Hey, that's not what you're talking about." His wife looked at my wife with a frown. "You're a mess, aren't you?" Just a few minutes ago, my wife got up from the sofa and got down on her knees to the man's wife. "I'm so sorry, but please, could you not mention this to my husband? I had only a fleeting moment of indecision with Dan. I didn't do anything when I realized I was in trouble. I was in a hurry and pretended like I just got home. But when I appeared in front of the 3 of them, I said, 'I'm back.' 'Oh, why? I thought you were coming.' My wife nodded her head. 'Yes, thank you very much. I'm done with this, and then we're done talking Dan. Let's go home.' The wife and the man got up and started to leave. She added, 'I'm sorry I invited my friends here without permission.' 'You don't have to worry about that. You may contact your friends whenever you want.' My wife then got up and came over to me saying, 'I missed you so much. I think we should do it now.' She gave me a beautiful hug. I felt goosebumps all over my body. This girl was trying to pretend that the baby in her belly was mine. What a cunning and cowardly person she was. Those words were perfect for my wife. I refused, saying, 'I'm tired today. Let me go to bed and lay down on the sofa.' She said, 'Hey, you're going to sleep there. Why don't you sleep in the bedroom?' 'I'm in the mood to sleep over here today.' My wife looked at me suspiciously, but I ignored her and closed my eyes. There's no way I can sleep in there. It was disgusting. The next day, I woke up and got up from the couch. My wife was preparing breakfast as usual. I was horrified to see my wife looking as if nothing had happened. Are all women such good actors? It's kind of like I have a phobia of women, but more than that, I wondered whose child was in her belly. That was my first concern. Yesterday's interloper said he was seedless, so conceivably, my wife has another man. Who in the world is this other man? I was curious, so I decided to find out. A few days later, I got a few days off from work and told my wife I had to go on an urgent business trip. Before I left home, I set up small cameras in the bedroom, living room, and everywhere else. This should give me even more coverage. While staying in a budget hotel, I linked my phone to the hidden cameras to check the footage in real time. For a while, the footage was just of my wife doing her chores as usual. Around 7 o'clock at night, a man entered the house. It was a different man from the previous interloper. My wife and the man were talking happily about something, opening a bottle of wine and eating food prepared by my wife, and when they got into a good mood, they started to intertwine in the living room. Then they came to the sofa while making out. Hey, wait a minute. Now, they're starting to do things on the couch. I'm gonna run out of places to sleep, aren't I? Then they started thrusting each other in a position you only see in an adult movie. And the next moment, their bodies separated somehow. My wife, who was on the edge of the sofa, lost her balance and fell to the floor in a dangerous position. The man was stunned and naked. I could see him shaking my wife as she lay on the floor and calling out to her repeatedly. And I froze as I watched the video. This is a pretty bad situation, isn't it? Should I go home now and see what's going on? As I was thinking this, I saw the man calling somewhere. He probably called an ambulance. The man started to get dressed, and he dressed my wife as well. My wife seemed to be conscious, and I could see her moving, crawling on the floor. At any rate, I was relieved that she didn't seem to have fainted or anything. I had already taken enough video evidence, and I went out to dinner. A little while later, hello. Oh, thank God you answered. This is serious. Can is hurt real bad, and she's on her way to the hospital. I know you're on a business trip, but can you come back right now? I understand. Can you tell me the name of the hospital? Of course, I wasn't on a business trip, so I could go to the hospital right away. Still, I ate dinner slowly and then headed for them. I found my wife asleep in bed with her eyes closed. I knew this because I had seen everything on video. I dared to ask my in-laws who had called the ambulance. They replied that the delivery guy had come to deliver a package, but there was no response from the intercom, so he assumed no one was home. Suddenly, a loud thumping sound came from the room. The delivery guy called out to her, asking if she was all right. He said he heard a voice calling for an ambulance, and that's why he called one. I was impressed with the delivery guy's ability to react so quickly. How is she doing? I asked. She's paralyzed on the left side of her body, my in-laws replied. The chance of recovery is very low, and she's pregnant, but she hasn't told him yet, I added. My father-in-law frowned and asked, Is that so? What's with your cold attitude? How can you be so calm when your wife is in such a situation? Who? My precious wife, I replied. She didn't seem to care about me. What do you mean? My in-laws shouted. I took out my phone and showed them the video of my wife's affair with another man. It was caught on a hidden camera. When my in-laws saw the video, they became silent. It was this interloper who called the ambulance, wasn't it? I asked. In other words, my wife injured herself during the affair, I continued. My in-laws nodded in shock. But aren't you worried about your pregnant child? My father-in-law asked. I'm ashamed to say that I haven't had S-time with my wife for more than half a year, I replied. So it's probably not my child. Moreover, my wife was having an affair with another man. Well, that man was seedless, so he probably wasn't the father. My mother-in-law collapsed to her knees, and my father-in-law apologized with a tearful face, saying, I'm sorry for my daughter. I'm sorry about your daughter's condition, but please know that you will not be spared a divorce over this matter. Let's communicate the rest of the way through a lawyer. With that, I left the hospital room. Afterward, I filed for a divorce with my wife through my lawyer and requested 3 million yen each in alimony from my ex-wife and her 2 boyfriends. As my ex-wife was a housewife, my in-laws must have paid the money on her behalf. I felt a little sorry for my parents, in-law who had such a stupid daughter. By the way, the man who got my ex-wife pregnant was a 20-year-old college student. He met my ex-wife on a dating app. My ex-wife was trying to keep him from destroying her future, and I heard that she tried to raise the baby as mine to avoid ruining his future. When I heard the story, I thought, are you kidding me? By the way, I heard that she lost contact with the college student. My ex-wife is paralyzed on the left side of her body and is now a single mother who is unable to work. She is in a state of depression and despair over her life, but she brought this on herself. I've heard that she's having a lot of trouble with Miss Annie, who demanded more alimony but claimed that since her ex-husband, learned about the affair, there is no need to increase the alimony. We purchased a home and are enjoying our time together as a family after being married to a younger coworker a few years later. Thank you for watching until the end, and please subscribe to my channel if you like. I'll see you in the next video.